Yo. Destroy Lonely just dropped a new single called If Looks Could Kill, and it's been going crazy on TikTok, YouTube, literally everywhere. It's kind of got this like old 70s like punk rock Nirvana vibe, and I've been seeing that style come back now for the past year. Yeet and Benny X did the same thing as well off the new album, and everyone's kind of incorporating live drum elements and electric guitars as well, and I'm all for that shit. I just have so much nostalgia tied to this genre. It's just dope to see it circle back into today's music. But yeah, be sure to check out the description for all our links, and let's get right into it. So starting off, I have two parts of the beat. In Destroy Lonely's song, there isn't really a acoustic element to the song besides like some snares and hi-hats, but when I started making the loop with the guitar, this is kind of just what came to me first. So I'll break down the acoustic part first, which is more in the styles of like Yeet and Benny X, and then after that I'll go over the Destroy Lonely part, so be sure to stay around for that. So starting off, the core and like foundation of these beats are guitar melodies, specifically electric guitar melodies, and there's a bunch of free versions of guitar plugins that you can get. I know Ample Guitar is one. There's a free contact bank called Shredder as well, which is crazy. But in this beat, I used Electric Sunburst from Session Guitarist. It's a bank I copped like way back when I started making beats. Kind of regretted it a bit because I never used it, but look where we are now. You know, guitar beats are back. So W. So I started off with this R&B Classics preset from this bank. And then after that, I used the Morning Sun preset for just like a top line counter melody. And as you can hear with this melody so far, it's really basic. It's not complicated at all. I just kind of try and tap into that genre and think of like old music I used to listen to. And I promise you, if you just sit and like listen to this type of music for 10 minutes, you'll be able to make a bunch of loops like this. So after that, I added a bass line, and this is just the classic bass preset from a default bank and contact. As you can see with this loop, I'm kind of just interchanging between presets, and I feel like that's kind of the best way to give these kind of loops life, because you can really go generic with these loops if you just keep the same sound and you do these like boring catching melodies. It can get a bit old pretty quickly, but if you have 5 layers to your loop and you have 5 different guitar sounds, you know, you can't go wrong. So for the next layer, I used the Rock School preset from the same bank, and it's kind of just like a palm muted sound. And I just had that for like pre-choruses and bridges. It's just kind of a nice element to have if you've got like a build-up in a song. And then the last guitar layer I have is basically the same thing. It's the same preset, it's the same MIDI notes as well, but instead of palm muted, it's a open preset. And that's kind of the best part of this contact bank, and why I feel it's worth the money, is you've got so much control of your sound, and everything just sounds so realistic. So if you've got some spare cash, this bank is definitely worth checking out. And that is about everything for the loop. So moving on to the drums of the acoustic version, you'll see in a minute I used this loop in both of the parts as well. It's not really like a huge switch up, it's just kind of like a drum switch up. But yeah, moving on to the acoustic drums, I started off with these cymbals. Moving on, I added more hats, and this is just kind of a 2-step in a way. I just added a shit ton of swing on it and fucked around with the velocity as well. And then for my last hat, I had another cymbal, and this just kind of comes in on the hooks. It might sound a bit busy now, but in the context of all the drums, it just works. So next up, I added a snare with some rolls. And then lastly, for the acoustic part, I added a kick. And I also added a bunch of like little drum fills and even more crashes just to make it sound more realistic. So moving on to the Destroy Lonely part, the part you guys have been waiting for. I started off with the first layer of the first part, and then I kind of just brought in elements of the second layer as well for the intro. And another thing I did is I automated the tempo, so it goes from 140 on the first part to 135. And as you can see as well, I used exactly the same drum fills, the same little off snares and rises as the first part. And these two genres are so similar that you can just kind of use similar elements as well. As you can see, even in the last element of the intro, I had kind of this cymbal build up that sounds exactly like the first part as well. So for the drums, I started off with a two-step and a clap, and then I also used this cymbal at some parts to kind of just make it sound like the hats and the cymbals are playing off each other. After that, I added a off snare. And I've been seeing this type of snares being used in almost all of these Destroy Lonely type beats. It's just kind of like a low punchy box snare, not completely an acoustic snare. It's kind of like a synthesized acoustic snare that they just pitched down. But moving on, I had this open hat. And then lastly, I added the kick and 808. And yep, that is about it for the beat. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope this kind of inspires you guys to make just a little bit more alternative beats than kind of, you know, your go-to placement beats, because that shit can get so saturated real quick. Just always try and experiment with shit. I went through like a little beat block episode for 2 weeks. I came back and I literally just made whatever came to mind, and it got me out of it so quickly. So I highly advise you guys to do the same. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll check you guys in the next one.